Hi, Chris.
Hello, nice
Th-
to
Thank you for
talk.
helping me in my project.
Of course.
So, did you know that NASA is putting people back on the moon in 2024?
Yes, I am aware.
Oh, how did you know about it?
Well, I was applying to a couple of NASA internships, or I was applying to a NASA internship, and I heard that they were planning to get people on the moon by 2024. So I watched one of their videos on their YouTube channel, and they explained the process. I kind of forgot, but that's kind of how I figured out about it.
Well, that's amazing. You know, I've been interviewing people for about 50 days now. And out of those 50 people, I would say maybe 45 of them did not know we were going.
Yeah, NASA hasn't been getting as much attention recently, I guess, because their government funding is a little bit lower than it used to be, but yeah, I guess it's not as big of a news as it used to be for NASA to go to the moon.
What do you think needs to be done to change that?
Um, well, personally, I would like to see more NASA funding, but I mean, obviously there are like other things to worry about, but I enjoy like innovation, scientific innovation and exploration. So I think it'd be good to have NASA have a little bit more funding, but they do like grant stuff to like private companies like SpaceX, Blue Jet or
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm not exactly sure how they can increase public knowledge, but I know that there are certain things that the public enjoys. Like recently, the picture of the black hole was all over the media. So, not exactly sure how you get the same effect, but I think once we get closer to the date, it should become more prevalent, I guess.
And what do you think about it?
I think it's good. I think it's a good start. Going to the moon, eventually going to Mars, I think is a pretty like monumental step in space exploration. Small steps. I don't know exactly where we'll have to go after Mars and after the moon, but I think it's good to start out small with start out small with like a kind of a big step. It's kind of ironic, I guess, but yeah.
Let's see. You know, you mentioned that some people say you should spend the money on something else and things like that. I mean, like, what would you say to convince them that this is a good thing to spend money on?
I would argue that the United States economy is like 21 trillion or 19. It's a very big amount, and currently the government only provides like 5 billion to NASA. So
It's like 23 billion.
okay, 23 billion,
That's
but that's
less than 1/2 of 1% of the
exactly,
federal
yeah.
budget.
So like, I know a lot of people argue that we need the like money for like military, for example, but I think instead of the 900 billion we spend on military, like maybe more, maybe like a little bit, like maybe 10 billion more or something like that could be used for NASA, because I read a couple of months ago that every $1 we invest in NASA is every $5 back into the economy because of like technology and stuff like that. So I would argue that it's more beneficial for the economy to invest into something like NASA.
Do you have dreams of yourself going into space?
I, I mean, I've thought about being an astronaut, but I would rather focus more on the like building the rocket ships or the like theoretical aspect rather than actually doing it myself. Just I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll change. Maybe my view will change in the future, but currently I'm not really planning to be an astronaut. But I am interested in the space.
Have you heard of SpaceX's Starship?
Yes, I've seen a couple of images. Haven't heard too much about the specifics, but I've heard a little bit about it.
It's supposed to be the most powerful rocket ever built, but the
Yeah.
cheapest per launch because it's 100% reusable.
100% like
100%. You just land it, inspect it, fuel it up, take off again.
yeah. SpaceX has made a lot of steps with reusable parts. I think it's very smart. It's more cost efficient. Yeah, I think SpaceX is doing a good job.
Do you know where they're building the Starship?
Houston?
Well, not too far. Boca Chica, which is near Brownsville.
Okay, I
Well,
don't know exactly know where that is,
Well,
but
it's on the tip of Texas, right by Mexico,
Okay,
on the Gulf.
Yeah.
In fact, whenever we were talking about building the border wall, it was supposed to go through SpaceX's facility.
Oh,
So that's
yeah.
gives you an idea of how close to the border
Yeah.
they are. But yeah, and they're building it right now. They did. They it's using the Raptor engine, which is like a full flow liquid methane, liquid oxygen engine. They attached that to a tank, and they took up went up 200 meters, and they moved it over and landed it. And
Yeah.
now they're building like a full prototype. They plan to take up, 20 miles or so, and then they might actually achieve orbit later this year. Be like an amazing
Yeah.
turnaround time.
I think SpaceX is like they had a very rough start initially, but they've like definitely grown since like their beginnings at least. I also heard now NASA is developing another rocket, like also a very big rocket. I don't know how it compares to SpaceX's, but I also know it should be like sufficient enough to get us to the moon at least.
Yeah, the SLS, I think is what you're talking about, Space Launch Systems. It is 100% not reusable,
Yes.
and it is the most powerful, most expensive per launch rocket
Yeah.
ever built.
I'm not exactly sure what goes into the specifics of like why they don't hire SpaceX to do the rockets. I'm not too like well informed about that, but maybe like SpaceX could like help cooperate with NASA to make it more efficient at least. Maybe provide some assistance. But then again, I still don't know how that exactly works.
Well, NASA's making some steps in that direction. Like right now, NASA has no way to get astronauts to the International Space Station, so they pay
Yeah.
like the Russian government like $90 million per astronaut to take them on a Soyuz. And about 6, 7, 8 years ago, NASA started this program to actually have commercial providers develop their own spacecraft, and NASA would buy seats on these spacecraft. It'd be completely owned, and the way they did it was like a milestone-based contract. So like they had 4 vendors at the beginning, they got to a certain level, then they down-selected the 2, and then they funded them to develop the rockets. So the 2 that were selected were SpaceX with their Crew Dragon,
Yes.
which did an in-flight abort test just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I heard about that. I've seen a couple of videos online. Yeah.
And last year it did a test where it went up to the International Space Station. It docked. The astronauts, there was no crew in it. But the astronauts on the International Space Station looked at it and did whatever. Then it came out and landed. And they're supposed to be sending astronauts on it in I think as early as April.
To the SpaceX is gonna help send astronauts to the ISS. Yeah.
Yeah, and NASA's just going to pay them like you would buy a bus ticket or airline ticket.
I thought I read something about them, something to do with the ISS, and they already sent like more astronauts there, or was that like I don't know? I might have been reading something else, but I thought they did something similar to the ISS.
Well, like today, 2 astronauts, or I guess 3 astronauts, landed back from ISS, and then they'll be launching some new ones soon. So
yeah, I'm kind of curious to like I know that ISS is really important, but I don't exactly remember what they do because I know they're important somehow, but I don't know exactly the specifics they do up on the ISS or ISS. Yeah, if you want to like explain it to me, like what exactly they do.
Well, one good thing about the International Space Station is it's in a continuous free fall, so you don't feel the effects of gravity. There's of course gravity, but otherwise you just fly in a straight line. But we're learning what effect does that have on the human body.
Yeah.
How can we protect the humans from it, because you lose like a lot of bone density and muscle density, and all your fluids kind of like go up into the top of your body and stuff like that. In International Space Station, you're in a weightless environment.
Yep.
You're breathing in and out air. Here on Earth, when you breathe out the hot air, it's hotter than the air around it. It goes up.
Yes.
And then cooler air comes in, which means that without you doing anything, you're constantly getting good circulation of air. International Space Station, if you were to go to sleep and they didn't do anything to prevent it, you would just literally breathe in and out the same air, and you would die.
Wow,
because even though like there's plenty of oxygen around you, it's just like you don't have the same circulation.
Yeah.
So they have to have fans. So like a fan that we take as like, wow, it's kind of cool to have like a little fan. It's like a life and death type of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to like working with space. I think it's extremely interesting the effects of gravity, how they like altered time. So they did this experiment where they had like two twins or something like that, and then when they measured one of the twins when they came back from ISS, I think they were 1 second or like 1 seconds older or younger than their twin or something like that, but because of like time dilation and stuff, I think it's like extremely interesting how they do like these experiments with like ISS and like lower gravity situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that's moving in relation to the thing that's staying still, the time slowing down for the thing that's moving.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why like particle accelerators, you have like these particles that have very short lifespans, but if you could accelerate them to really high speeds, then you can make them exist for, you know, several, like double or triple their apparent life because time slows down for them, but for us, it lasts longer.
Yeah. I think that's extremely interesting. I enjoy watching videos about like this kind of like stuff. I've also been watching some videos on like dimensions and string theory. Obviously, I could never not never, but like I currently don't have the knowledge to understand any of that. But I think it's really interesting how like these concepts work in our society, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we have the North Houston Space Society. We have monthly meetings with like guest speakers. This March, we're having somebody come from Space Center Houston. And then in April, we're having somebody that worked at Johnson Space Center on preparing food for the International Space Station. And then we have like lots of other guest speakers lined up. It might be of interest to you sometime.
Yeah. I'll definitely check it out when the next time the meeting comes. Been pretty busy with school lately, so it's hard to like find time. I have a debate tournament tomorrow. So.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
That's great! Congratulations. I hope you do well.
Hopefully.
Is it like a single person? You have a team member?
Well, for the one that's most that's coming up tomorrow, it's a single event. But I usually do like a double event where it's 2 versus 2. But for this one, it's 1 versus 1.
Yeah. Well, I have 1,788 more of these interviews to do. Any advice from you on like how I should approach it?
I mean, I think you're good. Just make sure you keep at it, I guess. I think it'll be really interesting to look back on this. Hopefully there's no delays on getting the moon. I know there's always delays, especially when it comes to like government-funded programs or organizations. So hopefully it's on time, but
I hope so too. It's gonna be very weird whenever I'm like, but why are you counting down to that date when it's gonna be 4 years after that? It's like, well, let me tell you a story.
Yeah, I read a couple years ago, I think we were supposed to reach Mars by 2020.
Oh my
gosh. Got
gosh.
delayed 2 years. Now it's another 2 years. So,
Oh my goodness.
We'll see. I mean, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Exactly. So you said you didn't plan on becoming an astronaut, but just to come back to that question real quick, if it was economical and you could, like it was just like traveling from here to New Zealand type of cost and risk, would you go to space?
Maybe as like a commercial, I know that they're developing like commercial like flights to space. Maybe like just to try it out once, but not consistently. Because I'm currently more interested in like the theory of like the universe, and maybe I might like consider becoming like a rocket scientist or something if I have like the knowledge and the resources available to me. But for an astronaut, I think that requires a lot more like physical, like mental fortitude, physical fortitude, and then you also got to know all that extra science stuff. It's a lot of preparation. I think it's cool, but other than that, I'd probably just go to space as more of a just to see what it's like rather than doing it as my job.
That sounds good. I hope to go and see what it's like also. So.
Yeah. I think I'm not very good with roller coasters because the weightless feeling makes me kind of like don't feel so good afterwards. So
the funny thing is, Christopher, Steven, and I, we went on a hyperbolic flight where you can experience the free fall weightlessness for like 30 seconds at a time. And one of my fears of that flight was that, it's calls because essentially you're accelerating downward at the same rate as gravity's pulling. And so you are falling. And so I was afraid I would feel like I was falling. But when you begin that hyperbolic flight, you just feel nothing. It's just like you're weightless. Like I did a flip, and if I had my eyes closed, I wouldn't even know I was spinning. Like you just have no sense of direction. It's just like you suddenly feel free. The first three parabolas, they don't give you weightlessness. The first one's like a 1/3 gravity to simulate like Mars. The next two are like 1/7 to simulate the moon. I actually found those to be more uncomfortable than the weightlessness one.
So I think that's really interesting. I haven't experienced it yet, but I was under the assumption that it would feel like I was falling in a roller coaster. But now that you say it, like I don't know, I think it's interesting.
The problem with the roller coaster is it's actually negative G's. Like it's actually pulling you down faster than your body would naturally fall. And so it's like really jerking you around. Like whiplash type of thing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I remember going to the NASA Space Center, and I'm not exactly sure what it was. I don't know if it was like a anti-gravity chamber or something, but I think I experienced something like that a long time ago. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I did not feel good afterwards. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it might be different now since I'm a bit older, and
Well, they have that thing with like the 3 loops that are interconnected, and they spin you around like
this.
I
think I didn't do that one, but I saw somebody else doing that one.
Yeah, that one, it's complete disorientation. That's to get the astronauts prepared for whenever their spacecraft starts tumbling out of control, and can they get it back?
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of scares me about being an astronaut, is that there's very little room to make mistakes, because if like a single mistake could end up like you just die in the middle of space. But that doesn't often happen because you obviously have adequate preparation, but still like the chances are like kind of scary.
Exactly, and a lot of it's just the rate at which we do it. We go driving. If you drive all the time, you think nothing of it. But if you,
there's a lot of car crashes, and you don't think about that when you're well, hopefully you don't think about that when you're driving. But
exactly.
I think it's like in the moment you probably don't experience it, but if you actually think about it, it's kind of more daunting, realistic, something like that, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.